I'll show you how to transform layer content in Affinity Designer. This is predominantly done with the Move tool, which is selected by default whenever you open a document or create a new document. The Move tool is here on the Tools panel. If you are using another tool, for example the Pen tool, you can quickly switch back to the Move tool using V on the keyboard. Now I need to select my layer content. I'll select the text layer here by clicking on it with the Move tool active. We'll now see the bounding box around the layer, which allows us to transform it. To move a layer, just click-drag anywhere within the bounds of the box. To scale it, click-drag on the handles located either in the corner or the top, bottom, left, or right of the bounding box. Dragging a corner handle with certain layer types such as text and image layers will always perform proportional scaling by default. To override this, you can hold Shift when dragging. Letting go of Shift returns to proportional scaling. I can also hold Command on Mac, Control on Windows to scale around the center of the layer. Dragging the top, bottom, left or right handles will perform non-proportional scaling by default. Again, you can hold Shift to perform proportional scaling instead. Rotating a layer can be achieved either by click-dragging on the top rotation handle or by hovering over the outside area of a corner handle and click-dragging. Whilst rotating, you can hold Shift to constrain the rotation to 15-degree increments. Shearing can be performed by hovering just outside the top, bottom, left or right handles, and click-dragging. As with rotation, you can hold Command on Mac, Control on Windows to shear around the center point. Once I am finished transforming the layer, I can simply switch away to another tool, such as H for the View tool. Since layers are always transformed non-destructively in the Affinity apps, there is no need to commit the transformation. If you prefer to use precise values, you can also transform layers using the Transform panel, located in the bottom right of the interface. I'll drag this out here so we can see it clearly. To use this panel, I just need to select the Move tool again using V. Then the transform values become available to me. I can reset the rotation by typing 0 and pressing Return or Enter on the keyboard. And I can do the same for the shearing, so I'll use Tab to move across to the shear input box, type 0, and use Return or Enter. This control here lets me change the origin point for transformation. For example, I could click on the bottom right point, and now, if I move the rotation slider, it rotates around that point. I could change it to the middle point, and now, when I move the rotation slider again, it now rotates around the middle of the layer. The same applies for shearing. I could change the origin to the bottom left point, then move the shear slider to shear based on that location. I'll just move the text into a suitable place for now, and I'll move the transform panel back into the bottom right of the interface. Now, there are a couple of options available on the context toolbar that are worth noting for certain workflows. First, I'll make a selection of multiple layers by clicking to select one, then holding Shift, and clicking to select some of the other ellipse layers, and I'll select the planet here and the astronaut as well. You will see that the bounding box is set up to transform all the layers together. If I rotate, for example, it will rotate all of the layers around the center origin of the bounding box. The same happens if I scale the layers, and here I'm using the Shift modifier as well for proportional scaling. On the context toolbar, I can enable this option here, Transform Objects Separately. Notice the large bounding box goes away. Instead, only one of the layers has the bounding box around it, but the other layers do still have an outline. Now, if I rotate this layer, each layer will be rotated around its own relative origin point. The same applies for scaling. I can hold Command on Mac, Control on Windows, plus the Shift modifier, whilst resizing these shapes, and they all scale relative to their own origins. I can change the nominated layer for transforming by holding Option on Mac, Alt on Windows, and clicking on the layer I wish to nominate. This can be done either on the document view or on the Layers panel. Another useful option is Hide Selection while dragging. This hides the bounding box whilst you are transforming layers, giving you a clearer view of what you are doing. And that covers the basics of layer transformation in Affinity Designer. I hope you found it useful, and thank you for watching.